Hey guys, today I'm bringing you a Necromancer tank build. If you've been watching any of my streams, you would have seen this before. It's a really survivable tank build, and obviously as a tank you have like all these different sets and stuff like that you have to swap out constantly. So we've got a few different gear sets that we're running. But I'll show you what I run mostly in like dungeons and when I'm trying to be very tanky in PvE, like trials and stuff like that. And you can see here we run, this is the main set right here, Cyrodiil's Crest, or Crest of Cyrodiil. This set is, I think, one they added recently. I definitely don't remember seeing it before. And you can see it heals you when you do a successful block. And this heal is obviously affected by healing increase, it's affected by CP passives, and so on. Then the other set we run is Yolnacrin, also known as YOLO, of course, you know, why not? This set has a really nice buff on the 5-piece, where it says when you taunt an enemy, you give yourself and 11 group members minor courage for 15 seconds. Increasing your weapon and spell damage by 129. So basically it's equivalent to having another like, what's it called, jewelry enchant, for example. You can also see, in terms of jewelry enchants, we're running a shield play on all of them. For the shields here, I've gone divines on the shields, and as much as my armor as I could get pieces for, obviously it's not perfect. Got a little bit of a mishmash of stuff here. Sturdy, divines, infused. Obviously you want to go mostly for divines if you can. Sturdy is pretty good too, especially because this set does have, this build does have like a few problems with sustain, which I'll touch on briefly in a second. For weapons, it doesn't matter what kind of weapons it is, or what kind of weapons you have. I just put infused on both of them and crusher, and the crusher, you know, it just reduces the target's physical and spell resistance, and we just have it on both just to be sure. You don't really need any other enchants, I think, personally. Then we have Earthgore as the last set. This is a really strong heal set. Since they nerfed it, it can only heal one person, but since, you know, you've got your own heals on this tank build, you can heal yourself a lot with this. I'll just give you an example here. Lower our health a bit. I forget what the threshold is. You see it pops here. I'm also not sure when they made a change to equilibrium or this morph balance, because it used to make it so you couldn't heal yourself at all, but now it just reduces your healing done by 50%, which means you can still heal and makes it a lot more viable in combat. For our main bar, we've got Pierce Armor, Resistant Flesh, which comes from the Living Death, it's the first ability. Then we have Structured Entropy for the 8% max health increase, Absorb Magicka for the 18% of your max health heal, which is really strong, and also the cost of blocking reduced, and the increased amount of damage you can block by 8%. Then we have Inner Rage, which is our range taunt. You can see it's pretty expensive, 4,000 magicka. And then we have Ravenous Goliath, which you know, it gives you a shit ton of health, and it says like increased by 30k, which would put us at like just below 70. But it actually, you know, it scales with stuff like max health from this. Any other max healths we have, like there's a few different ones. I think there's one in here as well. Yeah, here it scales with this one too. So you end up with like this current threshold of health, like 38k. You end up with about 81k health when you use this, and it this morph like heals you constantly. So it's just like really good. It's a lot better than what's the word, than magma armor that what's it called, that the Dragonknight has, because this lasts a lot longer and is way more effective against small hits, where magma armor is really weak against dots, for example. Let's see here. Second bar, we've got Empowering Grasp. Sometimes if I'm doing a boss where I need to build ultimate really fast, usually if I'm like in a trial and I'm running Warhorn, I'll swap out Empowering Grasp with Heroic Slash. The thing is, Heroic Slash costs like a decent chunk of stamina, and on the setup here we run about 16k stamina, like with purple food. You could use this like every 12 seconds for the minor maim if you want to try and get 100% uptime on it, or every 9 seconds if you want to get 100% uptime on the minor heroism, which is really good because you can build your Warhorn really fast, for example. But I only really use that in trials, so it's not really, you know, something I would use in like dungeons, for example. It's just like not really worth it. Plus you usually have like a lot more ads you have to carry around, so it's gonna end up like running you out of stamina super fast. Whereas this is like an AoE that goes in front of you. It shoots, let's see if I can actually, this is probably better. It shoots 3 times in front of you, and it's got a pretty big hitbox. It's a lot bigger than, it goes under the ice, that's weird. It's a lot bigger than the circle it displays, because it will go like pretty far to the side. Then we have Mortal Coil, which, oh whoops, I don't want to do that. Mortal Coil, which if we can get a corpse next to us, we can use to siphon stamina. When is it leaves a corpse? It says creates a corpse on death, but actually it will create a corpse if you trigger it again after 10 seconds, I think. Yeah, there we go. So if you use Mortal Coil on a corpse, it will give you almost 3,000 stamina over 12 seconds. And this works even when you block, which is why it's pretty good. You can see my stamina slowly ticking upwards when I do that. So it's pretty decent, and it's really, really effective against bosses that have very slow attacks, because you can basically keep this up as much as you want, because it lasts about the same duration, 12 seconds, and like this will be up. You can basically keep this up like almost 100% if you just only use your Spirit Guardian for that. Then we have Necrotic Potency, which you use to generate ultimate. You can also use it for healing. The heal is okay, but the ultimate is what you really want. And it actually works really well with another passive we have here, Corpse Consumption, where every every 16 seconds you get 10 extra ultimate for using an ability on a corpse. So this would also trigger Corpse Consumption. But yeah, this is basically the way that Necromancers just build like a shit ton of ultimate really, really fast. And if there's ads, for example, in a boss fight or something, you can constantly build it. If there's like a lot of ads in a dungeon, you can constantly use it, you know, and build your ultimates like really, really fast, which makes running this ultimate, especially in dungeons, it makes it really worth it, despite the fact that it costs 335 ultimate. Because using this just means you can just build ultimate like several times faster than any other class in the game, without having to use any sets to help you do it. Then we have Spirit Guardian, as you saw. I'm using the Spirit Guardian version because I like that it lasts like 16 seconds, whereas the other morph is like 8-second duration, but it heals you twice as much or something like that. This one takes 10% of the damage you receive, which is super nice, really, really useful. And then lastly, we have Balance. If you don't like the idea of using Balance, which it uses your health to generate magicka. Let's see if we can just spend some magicka here so I can show you. Basically, you spend your health to give yourself magicka, which is super useful in what's it called, like in boss fights and stuff like that. But if you don't want to use this, you can use Beckoning Armor, Like, if I was doing a dungeon, I would probably run Beckoning Armor. Because Beckoning Armor is kind of like a twofold boon. Like, it creates a corpse when it disappears, similar to the pet right here. But it also pulls in any enemy that hits you from a distance. I think the minimum range is like 5 meters or something like that. It doesn't actually say that though, but that's what it is. So even though they're pretty close, you can pull them in. One thing it doesn't mention here, which I've found out through testing, is that it has the same range as a normal Dragonknight leash, or not leash, what's it called? The chains. If you don't want to run this to pull in enemies, you can also run Silver Leash. It's really expensive though, and the distance is only 22 meters. So yeah, if you're running this, just keep in mind it's got the same range as your range taunt. The reason why I'm running balance for the equilibrium here is because it basically gives you the same stat buff. If you look at spell resistance and physical resistance, as soon as we use this, suddenly this is almost 30, this is almost 29. 32.5 is the max you can get in spell and physical before it becomes useless. That's when you will hit like the 50% damage reduction cap with armor. And you can get the rest of this here. You can get the rest by using resistant flesh. So I can actually give you an example of the max we can hit on this setup right here. As soon as we trigger resistant flesh, you can see it goes up past the cap on both of those. It doesn't last super long, only what, 3 seconds, but it's really useful when you're taking a ton of damage. So that's just something to keep in mind. Oh, I've got an admirer over there. Let's see, champion points. In terms of champion points, you can kind of put them wherever you want. I put a lot into Warlord, a little bit into bashing focus, because you will be doing a lot of bashes, but you don't need to stack into this. Tenacity is like 10%. Arcanist, I put quite a lot in there. I didn't put any in Mooncalf, because obviously when you're tank, you'll be blocking so much that you never utilize your stamina recovery. Just in case you didn't know, if you block, see if we can actually get it to show it. Well, it doesn't show it, but when you block, you basically get 0 stamina recovery. Let's go back in here again. Shadow Ward, I put 56 in there just to get to the 20%, and Tumbling 20 as well. Well, 56 for the 20%. In the Apprentice, I put 100 into Elfborn for the crit heals with Magicka abilities, and 100 into Blessed for 15% increased healing. I also put 70 into Precise Strikes because this affects stamina heals, and I'm not really sure if Crest of Cyrodiil counts as a Magicka or stamina heal, to be honest. I would have to do a lot more testing to figure that out, so I don't really know there. And I just put it in both because if I ever run Vigor would scale off of this, for example. Then we've got 56 in Ironclad for 20%. Just put my leftover in Spell Shield, it really doesn't matter. Thick Skin 56, Hardy and Elemental Defender 56 for the 12%. And then 37 in Quick Recovery for 9%. Quick Recovery and Blessed will affect your heals the most, and Elfborn of course. But that's why, let's see actually how much we can get even with a 50% healing reduction here. Yeah, so we get a 7.7k heal with 50% healing reduced from our resistant flesh. And that's really freaking solid. The only downside to resistant flesh is the fact that it gives you minor defile for 4 seconds, which means spamming it in a row is ineffective because it gives you minor defile and reduces your healing done by 15%. Obviously it's still worth spamming it in a row, but it's just something to know if you're wondering why your healing values suddenly like dip after you use it the first time. Let's see what else. In terms of race, I picked Agronian, mostly because of this one. It says when you drink a potion, you restore 4,000 health, magic, and stam, which means it turns every potion you have, if it's an essence of magicka or an essence of stamina, it turns those into like minor tripod potions. You can see I also have tripods here. And tripod potions turn into crazy tripod potions. Basically, using this refills like all my stamina and like half my magicka. In terms of attributes, you can see we have 24 in magicka and 40 in health. So I mentioned earlier that this setup has a few problems with stamina sustain. And one of the reasons why I ran Agonian is because when we have the essence of stamina here, we can actually refill our entire stamina bar just using a potion. So if you look at this, I'm out of stamina, and it goes up to 11k, which is really, really solid. So that's why I picked Agonian. I also really like Agonians because they get, they get max health, disease resistance, and healing done. And of course swimming speed, which is pretty handy. Not really gonna help you in combat a whole lot, but it's pretty useful. And I like swimming, I guess. Let's see, anything else? I think I more or less covered everything I wanted to show about this build. So let's go into some of the other setups I have. Currently we're running Earthgore, YOLO, and Crest of Cyrodiil. You could also replace YOLO with Eben if you need to buff your party with health instead. If I was going to do a trial and I was going to be a buff monkey, I would go with Yolnikin and Alkosh. Obviously when we use Alkosh, we lose a lot of health and get some stamina instead, which puts our max stam to 19, but our overall health goes down to, let's see, front bar, it goes down to 31k, which is really low. So obviously this is more of like a setup where you would want to use the Lord Mundus for health, whereas I currently use the Lady because it just makes it a lot easier to hit the max resistances, which makes you a lot tankier. I think just here in the end, I've showed you like the various setups I use, but just here at the end, I'm going to show you a few clips. Obviously, most of them are just going to be clips that makes me look really good, I guess. But I'm going to have a clip that shows how you can use the renewing animation in combat, and also a clip from the newest trial where I was tanking one of the dragons, one of the first bosses, the ice dragon, I think. I also have an example where you can see how it goes wrong when you run out of stamina. Alright.
Okay, Saturn, pull in. Tips, get over here.
10,
pull in 3,
9,
2, 1.
11, 16,
Cool.
20. Oh, shit.
Zaz Warhol.
This is Noller. This is Tibbs.
There's a Storm Archer perfectly blocking my screen. Oh my god. My horn.
Thank you for the res.
Okay, Gladwin, are you alive?
I'm alive, but I'm not going to survive this, wherever it's...
Oh, geez.
Oh my god.
Are you fucking kidding me?
That's some bullshit right there. Oh
You gotta
my
be
god.
shitting me.
I wanna die.
Oh.
That's it. Thanks for watching, guys.